My name is Sir Arthur Eddington. I was part of the group that first tested Einstein's theory of relativity, which was quite different from the Newtonian's physics theory, which was accepted by most physicists of our time. We were trying to find out if Einstein's theory of relativity was right. For years we accepted Newtonian physics, and it showed accurate results based off of the theory that was presented. In reality, Einstein's and Newton's theories of relativity are very similar and show similar results. Einstein's theory actually shows twice the distance of the bend of light versus Newton's theory for the effect of gravity on light. Newton says that the light is being pulled by the gravitational field of the object, versus Einstein's theory says that the field has already been bent that the light passes through. For example, if a car is traveling on a bended road, the car is not being pulled towards the bend. The bend is already there and the car is just traveling. Most objects have a small gravitational field due to their size. So this became quite difficult for us to establish a way to test this. And it seemed the only thing that was large enough for us to be able to witness the pull of gravity on the light itself would be the sun. So when the idea was presented to test this during the solar eclipse, we began preparations to set up and test, because we knew the solar eclipse was going to happen on May 29, 1919. And at the same time, the Hyades star cluster was going to be passing through the sun's gravitational field, which gave us the perfect scenario to be able to test it and to witness whether or not light was being bent and at what extent it was being bent. On January and February of that year, I measured the position of the Hyades star clusters. Then during the eclipse, when we took pictures during totality of the sun with the star clusters passing through them. We had two locations established for the project to take place. The first one was in Principe, and the second one is in Sobral, Brazil. Both locations were picked because they typically had very good weather, and they were both in the path of the full totality of the eclipse. I was the head of the team that went to Principe, and we had great clear skies, and Sobral also had clear skies. Both groups took pictures, and then we brought the pictures back to England, where I analyzed them to prove Einstein's theory of relativity to be true. During the time of the project, there were lots of things going on in the world at the time. The most notable was actually World War I. World War I started in 1914. In 1915, Albert Einstein published 4 papers, one of which was his theory on relativity. The war kept us from hearing about Einstein's ideas for a while, and nobody wanted to listen to him because he was a German, and the Germans were considered the enemy at the time because of World War I. In 1917, me and a group of other physicists were looking at Einstein's theory, and I decided to perform the test necessary to prove or disprove Einstein's theory at the time, which I believed his theory would be proven correct. And led us to other problems in the situation, because of the war efforts, there wasn't a factory or a place where I could get these instruments that I needed, the telescopes and so on, to be built in order to test this theory. Luckily, on November 11th, 1918, the war ended, which was providential, because that gave us a little bit of time to be able to prepare what we needed. Wishing we had more time than we did, but 5 months gave us just enough time to be able to have the equipment built, as well as take the first measurements and travel to the 2 separate locations in order to test the Einstein's theory of relativity during the total eclipse. The other people that were involved in the coming together of this project to prove Einstein's theory of relativity, first of all, we wouldn't have been able to do any of it without Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was a pretty well-known scientist during this time, yet no one knew of him outside of his German physicists. But he was in no means world famous at the time. And the next person that had a big role to play was Wilhelm de Sitter, which was a Dutch physicist that actually presented me with Einstein's papers during the war for me to be able to read over, and his ideas fascinated me. I was amazed, and I knew that if Einstein's theories were proven to be true, that they would change our world of physics as we know it today. The next person that had a big role to play was Sir Frank Watson Dyson, which was the Royal Astronomer of Britain at the time, and he is the one that actually presented me with the idea that we should test Einstein's theory of relativity during the solar eclipse. The last group I need to thank, and really were the ones that helped all this come together, was the Royal Astronomy Society of England, because they are the ones that funded this whole project. My role for the experiment was to be the head of the whole experiment, as well as to be the head of the team that went to Principe. I was also in charge to decide how to perform the experiment and to watch over the measurements and the analysis, and finally making the call to what the observations revealed. Our measurements that we found after analyzing the photographs that we took during the solar eclipse were within 2 standard deviations of Einstein's relativity theory, and they were within 4 standard deviations of Newton's theory. Therefore, I established that Einstein's theory was more accurate and therefore correct over Newtonian physics theory. The impact that this project had on the physics community changed physics as we know it today. The entire physics community supported Newton physics until our project came about. We published our results and announced our findings on November 6, 1990. And November 7, 1919, Einstein was on the front page of every major newspaper around the world. His ideas changed physics forever. When discussing the accuracy of the results found, there were several issues that came into effect. The first problem we came across was scale. It would have been better to have a larger, more detailed, closer image. The second problem we ran into was the twinkling effect by the stars. Whenever a star is captured by a picture, it has a twinkling effect. In spite of these problems, our findings were enough to support relativity being true.